Hi, it's Amy from Mindful Art Studio, and I want to talk to you today a little bit about how I come up with my slow drawing patterns. So slow drawing is just what I refer to as these nature-based patterns that I come up with that then I draw on small pieces or paint on small pieces of paper. And they're a lot of fun, and like I say, they're always kind of derived from nature. And so they're kind of natural shapes, and they're just a great starting point for kind of getting my creative juices flowing. And I love sharing them with others because I think they do the same for others too, right? So I have a book that's called Draw Yourself Calm, Draw Slow, Stress Less, that explains the whole process too, but there's always a lot of questions, especially since the book, about how I come up with the patterns and how I came up with the idea. So I wanted to talk about that. So since the pandemic, so I started doing this during the pandemic as a way to give something back, because I was enjoying doing patterns on small bits of paper, and I found that it was a very accessible way to make art and make art on the go. And it also was a great way to get myself, as the name sort of says, to slow down and really draw in a very slow pace so that it starts to get me more grounded. And I find that when I do that, it opens up my imagination so much more. Since March of 2020, I've been coming up with these patterns, and once I kind of caught my rhythm, I realized it made more sense, rather than trying to come up with them week by week, to come up with batches for the first half of the year and the second half of the year. And having just done that for 2023, it gave me the idea to talk with you about how I do that. It's great when you're able to use my patterns and then copy them and use them either for relaxation or for your creativity. Even better is when you can start to come up with your own patterns. And I do talk about that both in my classes all the time, when I do Facebook Live with the pattern each week, and then also in the book. I thought it would be interesting to show you a little bit into that process. So for me, when I come up with a group of patterns, I mean, obviously I'm always paying attention to patterns in nature. It's just something that naturally fascinates me. If you pay attention, and maybe you already have, you'll notice there are a lot of pattern like types that are related to fractals, right? That like lightning or roots or branches, those are all ways that things kind of fractal off, right? So, and I have some viney, rooty things in paper cut back there that you may or may not be able to see well, but those are another way of playing with a fractal. And I love the way that these patterns repeat in different forms in nature as well. So, you know, like the examples I gave, cracked ice would be another one, or mud, right? And I just find it fascinating that the same basic pattern then just repeats, where there's a lot of bubbles or, you know, like clusters. And so that'll happen in cells and stars and groups of birds, like murmurations. So all of those things really capture my fascination. So, you know, when I am out in nature, I am just paying attention to any little beautiful, right? Isn't this incredible? I think that nature makes things in a way unnecessarily beautiful. Even the lines in the way that this seed pod has broken off are just so beautiful. And all the little points here, the texture, of course you can't feel that, but I can. Or here's other seed, I love seed pods. Let's see where I can put this, and we'll get a little closer. Just beautiful, beautiful lines and repetitive patterns, right? Or looking at this dried branch, right? Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous lines and curves. So I will take inspiration from all of those things. And actually, like I said, I do explain this in the book. Let me see if I can. Yeah, so in the book, I talk about this process actually with this particular branch, right? And I show how I play with the shapes, and I make it more and more and more simple. So with the slow drying patterns, I have some criteria that I work with that help me kind of keep an easy system going, right? Because it's not just for me, it's for sharing with everyone. So my criteria is that it needs to be nature-based or at least like identifiably somehow connected. Sometimes I do mark making and then something will emerge from there too, but typically it's nature-based, but there's a certain relationship there for sure. And I've got to really enjoy making the pattern. I have no interest in presenting a pattern just to have another pattern that's different. I want to present something that really excites me and that I want to work with many times. So it's got to be something that is simple enough that anyone can draw it, but complex enough that you would want to work with it many times, many different ways. So yeah, so then I come up with a group, and some are drawn in pen and some are watercolor and some are a combination, and you can see there's quite a stack, right? That's for basically half a year. And then I've also got a stack for the ones that didn't make the cut this year. And it doesn't mean that they won't at some point or that I don't like the pattern necessarily, but some of them I really don't. But I just want to show you, like, the stack of ones that didn't work out is bigger, and there's a lot of them, right? So for me, I really find you've got to have that openness to just playing and seeing what emerges and see where that takes you. And as I alluded to before, I also love to interpret these patterns through paper cut, and you'll get a sense of, hello, you'll get a sense of how those patterns really do repeat. This really reminds me of the way that foam, like when foam is sitting on top of water and when it starts to swirl around and move, I find that really fascinating. And I really let my patterns take me in lots of different directions. So, this piece born out of some of my slow drawing patterns, a combination of them put together. And I think this piece is going to end up being, I forget how the orientation is exactly, but something like that. And I'll use them over watercolor bursts. This is a piece that's gonna take a long time that I'm working on, where it's kind of a screening effect. And even when I take other classes just for my own enjoyment, you can see I've got some indigo dyed pieces, and that's with a rice pattern that I came up with. That's one of my favorites, and it's a student favorite as well. But these patterns are everywhere in nature, and someone asked me recently, like, do I think I'll ever run out of patterns? And it does get harder in a way each year to come up with new patterns, but it just means that I have to start thinking about, or I do think about and look for patterns in new places, right? Because the number of interpretations even of a particular type of pattern, like a fractal, is infinite, right? There's just so much. Nature is so giant, so huge. I think that's where the creativity really comes in, and that's where it really comes in for you. My hope is that you take any pattern that I present and really make it your own, or take 2 or 3 of the patterns that I present and find new ways to combine them and play with them. And the key to that is really giving yourself permission to make stuff that's just bad and not attractive to you at all, right? Because when that space is there, then you've got lots of space to play, and that's really the point. So yeah, and I love the process of slow drawing and drawing these patterns, and the slow repetitive drawing for me is super relaxing, and I know that it's like that for a lot of my students as well. And the patterns really feel quite precious to me, right? I mean, I put a lot of effort, every time I go out on a hike or I'm on a walk with the dogs, I'm always looking, I'm always having my artist eye there, and my nature loving self and my artist self are super intimately connected. It's wonderful to be able to bring those together in my art and see where it takes me. It's like an adventure, and that's really my hope for you as well. So I hope that you enjoyed learning a bit about the slow drying patterns and my process, and I hope that you can extract some nuggets for yourself in your own practice. And I hope to see you at the weekly slow drying sessions. And you can also find my book, Draw Yourself Calm, pretty much everywhere books are sold. So, all right, have a great day. Take care. Happy creating. Bye-bye.